Advanced functions, parameter sets. So this nugget is really going to be our kind of last exploration into the world of advanced functions. And I'm going to show you how to create multiple parameter sets. Now, there's definitely some explanation about why you would want to do that and how it works. And I'll show you some examples from native Windows PowerShell commands so you can kind of see where this goes. I think one of the easiest ways to really appreciate and understand multiple parameter sets is to look at a command that already uses them. And a great example is the getEventLog command. This is one parameter set, and this is a second parameter set. Now you can see that these two sets really have slightly different purposes. This second parameter set is designed to list the event logs that are available on the computer. Once you know the names of the event logs, you can use this first parameter set to retrieve events from that log. Now you'll notice that they have this minus computer name parameter in common with each other. So that's a parameter that exists for both sets. Now that means, as I'm typing the command here, get event log minus computer name, let's just do dc.lab.pri. At this point, PowerShell doesn't know which of the two parameter sets I'm using. I've only used parameters that exist in both sets, so I could still go either direction. The minute I pick a parameter that only exists in one set, though, I've locked myself into that set. Because I've now typed the minus list parameter, I can no longer choose any of these other parameters. I can't specify entry type or newest or anything else. The only other parameter I can add here is asString, because it's the only parameter that's in this parameter set that I haven't already used. So that's kind of the difference between those two sets, and it's one of the interesting things about PowerShell. Now there's lots of commands that have multiple parameter sets. Just off the top of my head, invoke command has got several. This one, for example, uses the minus script block parameter, the argument list parameter, input object, and no new scope, but it does not accept a computer name parameter. On the other hand, if you get into some of these other ones, you can specify computer names. Here's a parameter set that has computer name in it. So let's see how we would kind of put that to use. If you look at the help for about functions advanced parameters, we can get into the parameter set portion of this documentation, and I'll show you what this looks like. Help message, alias, parameter validation, blah, 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 blah. I must have skipped it. It's probably one of the first ones. Let's scroll back up. Value, here we go. What you do is you specify a parameter set name. So each parameter is allowed to belong to a parameter set. However, any parameter that does not belong to a parameter set automatically belongs to all parameter sets. So it's parameter set name that we're going to be playing with here. Let's hop over to my function. Now this is the same get disk space info that we've been playing with for the past 3 nuggets or so. If you haven't already watched those, I recommend you do so because that'll help you kind of understand how I got to where I am right now. I am going to add parameter set name to my computer name parameter. And we're going to call this info. Now the actual name of your parameter set is important to you, and it should be something meaningful to you, but there's not really very many places that a user of your function will see it. So it doesn't necessarily need to be super descriptive of any kind. I'm going to make sure that my drive type is in the same parameter set. And we're going to go back and forth and do a couple different versions of this just to kind of play. And then I'm going to add another parameter. And we're going to put it in parameter set name list. And we're just going to call this, what could we do? I know, let's put a switch. We'll do a switch and we'll call this list drives only. Right, so now I should have two parameter sets. I'm not going to do any coding on this right now. I just want to see what PowerShell does to interpret this. So let's remove the module from memory in case I have it in there and ask for help on get disk space info. And you see that it has now pulled apart my two parameter sets. It knows that this first one has computer name and drive type, and the second one has list drives only. Look what happens now if, break. Look what happens if I remove the parameter set name from drive type. That's all I'm going to do. So let's remove the module again and ask for help again. Now the drive type parameter shows up in both parameter sets. You see, because it doesn't belong to any parameter set, it exists for all of them. So now let's do some changes here. What I'm going to do is set it up so that if someone runs this and they use -list drives only, I'm not going to calculate all of the free space parameters. Right? So to begin with, I'm only going to select drive and size. So that's going to be the end of this command. Let's get back to that. I'm really kind of picky about formatting, so I'm going to be right in the right column. If not list drives only, and I'm going to put a little construct here. There. So if they ran this and did not specify list drives only, then I know we must be in the first parameter set, right? And I'm going to, this is not totally going to work, and I'm going to walk you through why, because this is one of the problems you can get into when you're not being careful with multiple parameter sets, and I see folks do this a lot. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, that in here somewhere, what I wanted to do was add free space info to the output. All right. So the ways I'm thinking you can run this is if you run it with -list drives only, you just get a list of drives and their size. If you run it without list drives only, then I'll calculate free space percentage and stuff like that. Think about this real hard. If I run this with list drives only, I cannot use a computer name parameter because that does not exist in this parameter set. Computer name only lives up here. I'm going to save this. Now I know the code's not complete. That's not the point. I want you to see what it does. Remove module, example. Get disk space info -list drives only computer name. Now you'll notice that the tab completion is letting me get away with this. Look. It'll tab complete list drives only, and it'll tab complete computer name. But when I run this, I get an error because it cannot resolve the parameter set. Look, you specified a parameter from bucket A, and you specified a parameter from bucket B. Pick one. You can't have both. So you got to be careful when you sit down and design multiple parameter sets. You really have to decide what it is your function is going to do, and make sure that everything is lining up. For example, if I wanted to list drives only, I probably still need a computer name. I probably still want drive type local. If my goal is to give the person an option of querying from multiple computers, specifying the type of drive they want to retrieve, and specifying whether or not they just want a list of existing drives, that's probably all one parameter set. I probably don't need separate parameter sets for those. So a lot of times you won't actually need multiple parameter sets. So let's kind of step back a little bit and think about an example where you might actually want multiple parameter sets. But before I do that, I'm going to do a bunch of undos because I want to put this back to the way it was. I'm going to take out all that extra parameter set stuff, including the parameter set names. Okay, so that's kind of back to working. Now let's talk about a fresh example where it might actually make sense to do two different parameter sets. So let's start by kind of putting this into a little bit of an informal approach. I'm going to just start with a command. So let's do os equals get wmyObject. You know, if you use tab completion, you won't misspell it. Computer name I'm going to assume is in a variable called computer, and the class I want is Win32 operating system. Now I'm going to have some variable that's an argument for this. I'm just going to set it to 0 because what I ultimately want to do is an os.win32 shutdown, and I want to pass it that argument. Now if you get on the intertubes, let's see, where's my browser? i.e. there. The Win32 operating system class and dig into its methods has a Win32 shutdown method. That's what I'm going to use. And it accepts numeric values. 0 is log off, 4 is a forced log off, 1 is shutdown. Basically, the math goes here. You do 0, 1, 2, or 8 to do a log off, shutdown, reboot, or power off, and then you add 4 if you want to force it, meaning you don't want an application to be able to cancel that. So I want to build that argument number up to be whatever I want it to be, and then run this to do the computer. So let's assume, for example, that I'm going to build a function, and it's going to be called set computer state. And I'm going to start it with the commandlet binding, because you got to. And then I'm going to build a param block. And I'm going to go ahead and let this thing accept pipeline input, so we'll put a process block in here. And I've got to be picky about my formatting. That's inside the function, so it gets indented. And I'm assuming I might have more than one computer name, so for each computer in computer name, we'll do a little for each. And we'll close that construct, and now all this stuff has to be indented inside that as well. Cool. Well, that sort of tells me right up that I'm going to need a computer name parameter, right? So parameter, mandatory is true. Wish it tab completed these things. Mandatory is true. Let's say value from pipeline is true. Now, no matter how I run this, it is going to have a computer name, or this is worthless. So I'm going to also say value from pipeline by property name equals true, and end that off, and I forgot the $ in front of true, but I'm not going to put this computer name parameter into a parameter set. It's just going to be a string called computer name, comma, next parameter. Now the next parameter, I want to make a switch. Switch force. That is also going to be in every single one of my parameter sets. And down here, I'm going to say if force, then arg is equal to whatever is in arg plus 4. So if somebody runs this with minus force, then it's going to add 4 to whatever operation they're specifying. Okay, I've written this function in the past, and one of the things I've done before is I've created a parameter called action. And I'll put a validate set on there so that the action parameter will accept the word power off, log off, restart, or shut down. This time I'm going to do something slightly different. Watch this. Copy, paste, paste, paste. That's the last parameter there, so I'm going to get rid of that, comma. This is going to be, let's see, we'll go in order. Log off, after that is restart, I think. After that is shut down. After that is power off. And I'm going to name each of these parameter sets that. And then in my code, I got to pull my browser back. Well, we'll do that in a sec. Let's see. If log off arg equals 0. If, what did I do next? If restart arg equals something else. Where's my documentation? Shutdown is 1, reboot is 2. Shutdown is 1, reboot, okay, so this is 2. I thought I was putting them in order. if shutdown, is that what I call it? Shutdown. Then arg equals 1, right? And the last one is if power off, then arg equals 8. So, you know what? Let's put this, oh, I should have done this. I forgot I had a module. I'm just going to copy and paste this all into my existing module. That way I don't have to make another module. Let's collapse that, make ourselves some room, and just paste that right in there. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. So the idea is I can run this, I can specify one or more computer names, I can always specify force, but then I have to choose log off, restart, shutdown, or power off. So let's go over to the console here, remove module example, exemplare, help set computer state, and you can see I get my 4 different parameter sets, log off, restart, shutdown, or power off. All of them will accept computer names, and all of them give me the option to make that a forced log off, restart, shutdown, or power off. So this is a good example of putting together a multiple parameter set function. I could have made, as I said, a single minus action parameter and just said you're going to have to specify the action you want, log off, restart, shutdown, or power off. One reason to do it this way is because it makes it very clear to someone who's just reading the syntax portion of the help. In other words, they haven't asked for the full help, they've only asked for the brief help. They can quickly see what this thing is capable of. Oh, it does all those things. All right, that's pretty straightforward. I would probably go through here and put my help message attribute in here. I would definitely put some comment-based help in this function to finish it off. But it's actually pretty functional just like it is. If they run it with log off, arg gets set to 0. If they had specified force, and I guess if you want to be consistent with the formatting, since this construct is only doing the one thing, we can put it on one line. If they specified force, 4 gets added to it. And it's impossible for them to specify both log off and restart because PowerShell itself will not allow that because those things live in different parameter sets. This is really cool. Show command, set computer state. Look at this. I actually get a different tab for each one. I can check off the ones I want, punch in the computer names. Now here's the only downside to this entire approach that I've done. It's possible to run this with computer name and force, and that's it. I don't have to specify log off, restart, shutdown, or power off, meaning I would specify these two, and what would happen? Well, nothing, I imagine. I'd probably get an error back because arg would wind up being 4, but 4 doesn't mean anything to this method. So again, you do have to be a little bit careful about how you want to make these things into different parameter sets. But anyway, hopefully it's a good enough example of how to set it up and how to accomplish these things, and a little bit about how you would code for these different parameter sets as well. So as you can see, multiple parameter sets are definitely another useful technique when you're building advanced functions. They kind of let a function do 2 slightly different things. Like the example I showed you with getEventLog. There's the parameter set that lets it get the entries from an event log and the parameter set that lets it list the logs that are available. One command, 2 different parameter sets which let it behave slightly differently. And now you know how to create advanced functions that do the same thing. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.